We've had amazing sessions so far this afternoon. So now we're joined with the team from UBS. So this is going to be a really good one, a really good fireside chat that they're going to run through some questions. So if you didn't know about the company, you're dealing with a company that manages the largest amount of private wealth in the world. So that's half of the world's billionaires. So they know how to take care of their people. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Charles Davis, who is going to lead this presentation and talk with the rest of the team. So we're joined by Sherwayne McLean, Leonora Daniel, and Bilal Hilton Lee. So guys, join me in giving a warm round of applause for the team at UBS.
Thanks, everybody. So today we're going to be talking about future-proof skills. So how do you equip yourself for the jobs of tomorrow? So my name's Charles, as was said. I'm a director at UBS. I work in IB Change, and I specialise in leading strategic and regulatory change programs. I've been at the bank for 5 years, and one of the things that I've piloted, along with my colleague Ghislaine, who's sitting in the audience, is IB Ben, which is an employee resource group for black employees within the investment bank, with the aim of improving the black experience and black representation within UBS IB. So I'm going to introduce my colleagues now. So I'll start with Bilal, if you want to say a few words about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? So well done for coming and for being in the room. I think that BYP is excellent, so long may it continue. I'm very happy to be here. So I'm Bilal Hilton Lee. I'm the UBS lead for data integration. So in a nutshell, that means I look after the governance for bringing together the enterprise data of our two heritage firms. But I've spent the last 10 years building analytics teams and capabilities. That's the day job. I'm proud to say that, like everyone on this panel, I'm involved with the UBS ethnicity agenda. So I help Mosaic, the ethnicity network. I help with the BERGs, so the Black Enterprise Resource Groups, and recently joined the advisory group for the UBS Black Talent Strategy, BTAP we call it, the Black Talent Action Plan. So yeah, very happy to be here, and we hope to meet some of you afterwards, in the other sessions and the networking, etc.
Thanks, Bilal. And echo what Bilal said, welcome to everyone. Leonora Daniel, I'm Managing Director at UBS. I actually was previously at CS. We are all one big firm now. I was there 25 years. My career is 32 years. I started off at Lehman Brothers, and my role at UBS is the global head of impaired asset management. So basically, if a corporate defaults on their loan, that's my team's responsibility. I'm also a big advocate of D&I and have done that for quite a while now.
I'll echo a lot of what's been said. So my name is Sherwayne McLean. I've been at UBS for 18 years, all in group finance. My role is global head of balance sheet control. Essentially, I set the policy and control framework over our financials. Similar to a number of folks here, very much involved in driving our DE&I strategy for black talent. I'm a member of Mosaic, or Ethnicity Network, and also founded the Black Employee Resource Group in Group Finance. So happy to be here, ready for this conversation.
Indeed. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about the topic for about 20 minutes, do some Q&A, and then we're going to open it up to the audience so you can ask our experts any questions that you want the answers to. So I'll start with you, Bilal. So what sort of skills and competencies do you think are going to be most in demand over the next 5 years?
So that is an important question. But first I should say that my picture's not up there because I couldn't get sign-off from my modeling agency. So, look, hugely important question, especially with the advent of AI and latterly Gen AI. So the first thing I'll say is that we shouldn't worry necessarily. Throughout history, there have always been these technological shifts. The car came, the printing press even before that, the car, the plane, the internet, and these are technologies which shift the way that we interact with the world, that we do business. And guess what? People still had jobs at the end of it. Yes, there was some turbulence, but people still had jobs. And So in the run-up to this call, we've having lots of conversations and doing research, etc. And one of the papers that I looked at, which was produced by the World Economic Forum, it predicted that over the next 5 to 10 years, 85 million jobs would be displaced by AI. So let that sink in. 85 million. But the good news is that they think that 97 million jobs will be created tangentially to AI. So I think this conversation here is all about how we pivot. We did have a slide earlier, we're not going to show you today, but what we think is that the shift from knowledge-based to skill-based expertise is going to be hugely important. Long gone are the days where you do a degree and a master's and a PhD in a narrow field. It's actually how do you bring together all the different pieces of knowledge in the world. So if we're going to talk about skill, that's the first skill. You need to know how to interact with the data, how to interact with the world, how to interact with the different parts of knowledge. I bet you that if you spent 24 hours on ChatGPT on any subject, you could be credible that next day. Yeah? How many of you have used ChatGPT to deepen your knowledge on something you already know and were impressed? Exactly. So I think it's really important to know that knowledge is no longer the preserve of, now Leonora doesn't like me to use the word the elite, so I won't say elite, but it's no longer as inaccessible as it used to be. You can get knowledge on anything quite easily, but how do you pipe that information together? So that's one skill, it's manipulating the information. The other is, and now if we call it data and analytics, businesses use data to make important decisions about their strategy, how they execute, how they manage their performance, etc. Being able to do that, being able to use huge amounts of data, previously, let's get another stat here. So I think that all of the data up until 2022 was multiple petabytes of data. I don't even know what the unit is. But if we look at the projection of that, in a couple of years' time, we'll have double the amount of data that we've ever had in human history. So what does that mean for you as an analyst, as a lawyer, as a consultant? So these are things that you need to think about, because that's how you're going to make the difference in the world of work. So I think data science, data management are going to be absolutely key skills in whatever industry you're in, being able to interpret. The next thing is, it sounds a bit obvious, but I have to say it. We all have to be comfortable with AI as a topic. What does it mean? How does it work? And it doesn't mean that you have to do computer science as a degree to be useful in 2025, 2026. What it means is that you, whether you are a nurse or whether you are a lawyer, whatever role that you have to be comfortable with how your industry is changing. And you will create value if you can help your firm, your business, your industry be at the forefront of that change. We could go on. So, but those are the technology skills, and we've only got 20 minutes, so we're not going to focus too much on that. But what we will say is that it's not just about the technology skills. If you think about the competencies, so more than ever, we're going to need to be problem solvers. We're going to need to bring ideas to the table that can't necessarily be divined by AI, right? There is still a need for human creativity and human innovation. And I think the other thing that when we think about the future of remote working, so Shoaib and I had this discussion the other day about soon, and maybe even right now, there are some jobs that could potentially be done from a beach in Barcelona or from a hotel in Hawaii, and all you need is Teams or Zoom or whatever that interaction technology is. So how does that change the team structure? How does that change the organizational? How does that change the tax system? How does that change promotion process, mentorship? So these are things that we don't necessarily have the answers for, but absolutely you need to be thinking about as the game changes. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Bilal. So you've touched on a number of of areas there, tech skills, even kind of innovation and adaptability. So how would you go about gaining those sorts of skills and competencies? What are the concrete steps that you would take?
I like that. That's so. Yeah, hopefully we can give you something to leave the room with. So again, for me, I like reading, and before I dive into anything that I really want to learn and interact with, I want to kind of understand the context, maybe a little bit about the history, the talking heads and the perspectives. So I do like reading. So let's just say that you're going to learn about automation or AI. I find it very interesting personally that that the first bank account, so obviously we were bankers, the first bank account was created by Bank of America in 1953. And they only created it because previously all accounts were kept on cards, on physical cards. So the system couldn't actually sort by name. So reading for me it opens my eyes, and I think it makes me a better learner. So that's number one, and there's three. So number one is reading. Number two, courses. So I think Leonora might touch a little bit on this, but we think that the game is changing in terms of how education works. I would like to know if you agree. But degrees are no longer enough. Degrees are no longer enough. And they're a little bit inflexible. So if you look at the way that some universities have taken a few years to catch up with some of the latest technological trends, that's important. It's important to know that. And before you spend your money on doing a master's, you might want to look at Coursera or Udacity or Udemy and look for a 3-month course or a 9-month course, and you'll probably have just as deep an understanding of the topic as you would if you spent a year or two doing a master. So I think the second thing there is definitely courses, and then the last is people. This is that point about interaction. If you can't make it real by talking to people who are in the space, having a mentor, just being brave, using LinkedIn and say, I really like your job description, I like the company that you work for. Would you mind a half an hour coffee so that I can explore that with you? And you piece together those bits, and that's very, very powerful. The knowledge and then the kind of the context from the people around you and your mentors.
Yeah, I think that point on mentorship is really important, and that's one thing that we try and encourage at UBS as well, is everyone having a mentor and having someone that can drive your career. So I think that's really important. And you touched a little bit there on courses. So Leonora, in terms of lifelong learning and adaptability in today's environment, very important. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and actually, when I think about that question, it says the current environment. I think it's always been there. Just if I think about when I started my career many moons ago, we didn't even have the internet. Yeah. So if you fast forward now, everything is digital, technology is forever changing. And from that perspective, we all need to know how those developments are impacting us and how they impact our role. So, from my perspective, we should be agile, we should be curious, we should be thirsty for knowledge, and that helps us to grow, stay engaged, motivated, and be relevant to our employer. And again, I'm going to use just a little bit of my career. So when I was probably 12 years ago, maybe a bit longer, I had a certain role. I'd actually completed the role, and I was called into my boss's office, and he said to me, Leonora, we now want you to become a real estate approver. So my journey for my career in investment banking has always been in risk. So I was asked to become a real estate approver. I was like, holy moly, I know nothing about real estate. Yeah. And to be honest, if I didn't have the tools that were accessible and even people to talk to, it would have been a real struggle. So, and that probably comes to the adaptability point, which I'll talk to a little bit later. But actually, you could be in any situation where you are doing a certain role or a certain task, and your boss asks you to pivot to something else. Mm-hmm. And the ability to do that, to want to do that, makes you actually a really interesting employee.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that there. It also helps you to bring new perspectives, have different ideas, think of how many new things you are learning, what you are finding out. And actually, you go into your office, or I don't know how many of you are still studying, if any of you, and you're taking a fresh look at things because you've had new perspective, new learnings, new ideas, research that's been done that you can learn off. At UBS, and as I said, I transitioned to UBS in November. There is an awful lot, and it's probably using chatbot to generate all these emails that we see, but actually they're really good emails, i.e. they are telling us there's UBS University, it's encouraging us, Coursera, which Bilal just mentioned, which is encouraging all of us, including, I'm an MD, including the MD level, and it's never too late to learn, and you should never stop learning, actually. I think that thirst for knowledge is super important. So we have those, and it encourages us, me as a manager, me as a person, but also me for my team, because I want to have a great team. So how I can help my team to use all of those resources, that also helps them. And then in terms of be adaptable, what do people always say? There's two things that are certain: taxes, death, but also change.
Yeah.
Change is constant. If I go back to when we had the takeover by UBS, clearly there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of change that is going to come. You're either going to sit there and hope something's going to happen for you, or you're going to have to change, make those changes happen for you. And I think it's a very testing time, but we should all have that resilience and face up to challenges. I think, if you were at university during COVID, you expected to be going into your lectures, going out on freshman's week, having a ball, whatever happens at universities these days. Us, we're working for an employer, going into the office, and then actually we're all at home. And I can't speak for everyone, but I think most people, you're all here, you've all got through that. But actually, that was a challenge. It's a challenge you probably never thought you'd ever have to face, but you did. And I think that, sends its message in terms of adaptability. So that's what I'd like to say there.
And I think one of the key threads there is initiative, taking initiative to learn and take control of your own career, because you're the only person that can kind of drive that. And just touching on that point then, Shuain, in terms of how you take ownership of your own career, looking at some of the skills gaps you may have, how would you reflect about that, and how would you go about addressing those?
Sure. Look, I'd say there's 4 steps that I normally take. The first one is identifying the critical skills that's needed for whatever my career ambition is, if it's a short-term or near to longer-term ambition. Do I want to get to the next level? Do I want to switch roles? So what are the skills required to be successful to achieve that? So you do have to take the steps to identify what those critical skills are. The second step is then to assess your own skills, your own competencies. And I think you do need to self-reflect and be honest and critical about what your strengths, your development points are. I typically, when I list those items out, I interview my stakeholders. I get input from my line manager to make sure that I don't have any blind spots around what my strengths and weaknesses are. And then the third step is you do that gap assessment. So if I want to get to the managing director level, what are those competencies? Do I have them? If I've got a gap across 2 or 3, how would I prioritize them? And then ultimately I come up with my action plan to address the gaps. And one of the key things that's been said already, it's good to have a mentor. I would run my action plan by my mentor to help keep me honest as well on executing that action plan. Sometimes you may even find that you have the right skills. It's not about your capability. Sometimes it's some of the soft things that we might shy away from. Expanding your profile by networking, right? Getting the right exposure, marketing yourself, marketing your wins, marketing the wins from your team. So again, I think it's so necessary to do that. Oftentimes we're stuck in the day job that we don't take the time to step back and think about your career and take those active steps to drive your career forward. I've seen a number of people, particularly in our culture, that have our heads down working super hard and think that you'll just get acknowledged. Your work will be rewarded. But it's the networking part of things, the promoting your work, having others promote you is such a valuable part of career progression. One other thing I'd say, the adaptability point is such a big one. I've filled a number of open roles recently, and if I look at the role profile and what the person's actually doing, completely different. And if you think 2, 3, 4 years from now, I'm no longer hiring for a specific role. I'm hiring for competencies. What am I missing in my team? That's what I'm hiring for. And the nature of the job is constantly changing. So what I've hired you for today, you're going to need to acquire some additional skills tomorrow. I work in finance. Big data is a big topic. So AI, machine learning is a hot topic for me. So when I'm hiring someone, it's not the traditional accountant. Does that person have some of these capabilities from a technology standpoint? So I'll leave it there, but I just wanted to echo the point around adaptability and just build in your competencies.
Can I just say one point on go back to the mentors? So, and I think Charles said it, you can have mentors, but it's actually you driving your career. The other thing I would say is, you probably all sit in meetings, have networking. If you see someone that you're in a meeting with and you like the way that person speaks, you like their style, don't be afraid to go up to them and say, have a conversation. Would you be willing to X, Y, Z? Because I think, sometimes we sit in meetings and we all just go, okay, here's the agenda, let's get going. But actually, around the table is probably a lot of people with a lot of different experience, and there could be that one person that actually is someone that could help you. So I would just make that suggestion as well.
Yeah, and just to take that one step further, I think one thing that people don't necessarily realise is that when you're building those relationships, it's not a case of you give me something, it's a case of building a friendship fundamentally and building a relationship with that person so that when there are things that they can help you with, they are doing that for you as someone that they value in that relationship. It's not just a case of you're in a position of power and I want you to help me. It's how do I build a relationship person to person? And that's really important because I think a lot of people miss that, especially when networking. They'll meet on the initial, I want to get to know you, but then they don't make the effort to build that friendship outside of the work environment or outside of the typical environments that you'd be in. So I think that's
Should I just add to that? Because I think the key word for me in terms of having a strong mentorship is being comfortable with being vulnerable. Because it helps to establish that trust, right? And then you can really go there about some of the challenges that you're facing that you really need advice for. So I think that's such a key factor to have a really strong mentorship.
A mentor cannot pour into a jug that's already full.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. So I think now we can open up for some Q&A. So if anyone has any questions. I don't know if you have a mic. Anyone has any questions for the panel? There must be at least one question. Okay, we've got a question over there in the middle. Put your hand up.
Hello, Dorothy John, software engineer. I have a question around mentorship. I would like to know how to get the most out of mentorship, because I feel like I have had a few mentors over the years. I've joined the mentorship schemes at work, and I feel like I'm often just getting the same advice. So I'd love to know what approach I could be making that's different to get the best out of it.
Would anyone like to take that question?
Oh, thank you. I was thinking about that. Look, I think first and foremost, and this is what I say when people approach me to be a mentor. I think my first foray actually into mentorship was someone's boss who came to me to say, would you mind mentoring this person? She has seen you in a meeting, and this is, and I did exactly the same many years later. I saw someone in a meeting and who became my mentor as well. But I think, number one, you should have a mentor who you have a rapport with. Don't just have a mentor for the sake of having a mentor, because you're going to get that rote advice, right, with no real feeling, with no real thought about the person that is being dealt with. So I think the first thing is to develop a rapport, but also, what are your objectives? What do you want to get out of it? Because, I'm going to tell everyone, I'm sure everyone knows, career is hard work, actually. It is not just going to come to you on a plate. Yeah. It is going to be something, if you want it, you will need to work at. So therefore, in terms of your mentor, find someone who you have a rapport with. What are your objectives? And actually, you're the one that needs to lean in, as everyone, there's a word that, words that people like to use, to that mentor. Don't expect your mentor to put a meeting in for you, right? You're the one that needs to lead and drive. And if you find that you're just getting rote advice, then I hate to tell you, but you probably should drop that mentor and find someone else. But I think, what is your expectation as well? Because your mentor is only going to be able to give you advice. They're not going to be able to give you your career. And that, you don't just have to have one mentor. You can have a number, or one or two, that you're seeing at the same time. So I don't know if that's really helped answer your question, because I'm not sure there is a perfect answer to it, but it's how you approach it. Sorry, I'm not sure I can see you. So yeah, I can see you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, one other thing I'd add to that is, when you have your mentorship meetings, you need to come to that meeting with an agenda and an objective for that meeting. You can't turn up to the meeting and just chat.
Yeah, if I can add to that, you should probably tell your mentor in advance what topics you'd like to cover. I think if you really want to get the most out of it, it's what you've said, right? You have to do the legwork. I mean, I recently got a new mentor, and the first meeting, obviously we're getting to know each other. The second meeting, it's establishing kind of the terms of the mentorship. What do I want out of it? What can they provide to me? And then each successive session, I already have an agenda, right? I currently have some career ambitions, so I'm letting that person know. And everything we talk about is confidential, but we're open, we're frank, the candor is appreciated, and it's been super valuable. But if you're just expecting the mentor to drive, it's not going to be effective.
And could I add one thing? So we're talking about the future of work, and everything that's been said about mentorship, I echo 100%. But if any of you are thinking to pivot towards technology, AI, then seek a mentor in the space that you're looking to get into, or on that convergence line between where you are, maybe it's for pharmaceuticals, etc., and technology. Yeah. Find the right mentors, and as Shoain has intimated, you can have a board of directors, yeah, your own kind of me PLC, right? You can have more than one mentor, but make sure that your interaction with them is purposeful.
So we've got time for 2 more questions.
A couple more questions in the audience.
I need 2 more questions because of time.
Thank you. Hi there, my name is Michelle. I'm a multi-asset investment specialist. And I just wanted to ask, in terms of navigating corporate change, restructures, redundancies, how do you practically develop that resilience to, go through those changes? How do you stop yourself from being disillusioned, etc.? I'd just love to learn more about that.
I think that's a question for Leonora.
Oh, not all me. Look, actually, it's a really good question. And I say it's a really good question because clearly I have just come through that scenario. When I look at my team, I think for me personally, I think the approach for me would have been very different if I'd been 20 years younger. I will be completely frank about that. I have been through a number of changes whilst I was at Credit Suisse. I managed to see them through. I was not impacted, but clearly, each time it happened, personally, I will tell you that I was scared, actually. I was, oh my goodness, am I going to have a job? And I remember my daughter, she's now 28, but she was 13 at the time, and we were just going through a RIF process. And your boss can never tell you, but I remember we were supposed to go to the US, and I said to my boss, should I be going? And I kind of got the nod that I was going to be okay. But it was very difficult. Fast forward to last year. My headspace was completely different, but I was very mindful of my team, who are 20 years younger than me, still have ambitions to continue to climb the ladder, have different, going through a different phase in their life. And I think for me, it was just about supporting them, actually, trying to ensure that they would end up with roles, ensuring that if they needed to speak to me about anything, that I could be as frank as I possibly could. But it was difficult. Look, I've got years and experience on my side, so it does become very different. So that's, it is building it up. It is seeing change, but also actually not being afraid. So I'm going to say this, very simply. Basically, I think we all are nervous, or we can be nervous that, oh my goodness, we're going to lose our jobs. And we all have that shock horror if it does happen to us. But actually, for a lot of people, when you speak to them after the dust has settled, mindset settled, maybe it's a month, maybe it's 2 weeks, there is always something else that you can do. And actually, that's what comes down to building your skill set, continuing to try to be relevant and being open-minded to change.
Sorry, I was just going to say that, like we've been saying, adaptability and resilience is the new normal. Yeah. So long gone are the days where companies existed for 50, hundreds of years and careers were 20 years. Those days are going, if not gone already. So I think it's more a case that we need to be ready ourselves to the reality that we are going to have to adapt. We are going to have to be resilient. Look at companies, those tiny companies that have become billion-dollar companies in the space of a few years. They come and they go. So if we want to be part of that and survive and navigate this kind of brave new world, which is, we're at a time of technological change. It's like the car has just been invented. The internet's coming and it's changing everything. AI is coming and it is changing everything. So we are going to see turbulence over the next 5 to 10 years. So we have to ready ourselves for that. And being on the front foot is key.
And I think, sorry, can I just add one more thing to that? I think I was you know, I was at another event, and actually, I think the way it was described is that your career is no longer linear. It's like a, you know, it's a ladder that goes up and down, down and out, across. So I think that's what should be remembered, that even if you need to make a change, it's not the end, right? There's always will be something else that you can think about. Yeah. Sorry, Shway.
The only thing I was going to add with that, right, is with these sort of disruptive change, it's also potential for big opportunities, right? So that mindset is key as well. You know, even when I'm thinking about my own career, some of the growth has come when there's been those disruptions.
All right, thank you guys for that. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for Q&A, but if you would like to stick around